All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Thank you for joining today. I'm Joe Andrews from SupportLogic, and we're going to kick off with our webinar today around Auto QA, monitor the quality of every customer interaction and scale your support team. And I am welcomed today by my colleague, Harish Batlapenumarthy. Welcome, Harish.
Hello, everyone. I'm Harish. Glad to be here. Glad to be here with you again, Joe.
Likewise, I'm excited for today's topic. I don't know if anyone attended last month. We had a webinar with TSIA around this topic of quality monitoring and QA. It was well attended, and it's a great tee up for this conversation. Today, we're going to go a little bit deeper. So you see the agenda here. I'm going to start out with a quick introduction of SupportLogic, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges and the opportunities for quality monitoring and QA, auto quality assurance. And Harish is going to walk us through the story and talk a little bit about the benefits. We'll share a case study. We'll actually get into the product, how it works, and then we'll talk about the value and how you should think about it and plan for it if that's of interest to you. I'm going to ask everyone just to orient yourself again to the chat. Feel free to chime in. Many of you are already doing that. There's a QA section as well. If you have a question that you want us to address, please enter it there. And then we will be asking some poll questions throughout the webinar. So again, welcome everyone, and look forward to this conversation. To set the stage, I want to talk a little bit about support experience management. Support experience it's a phrase, and it's a developing category that SupportLogic has developed, and it really talks about the customer experience that cuts across the entire customer journey and ultimately benefits the whole company. If we step back just a few years, for those of us who have been in support roles or customer success roles, we know that support has tended to be siloed. It's been traditionally thought of as an after-sale, post-sale experience, and typically it's been siloed in terms of resolving issues, very much fixing broken processes, et cetera. And today, now with a number of trends that have been around for the last few years, things like the subscription economy, things like the move to SaaS, trends like product-led growth, support experience now affects every stage of the customer journey, from pre-sale through actual implementation and usage, and throughout the post-sale journey. And it affects every function across the organization, from your traditional support agents, support engineers, support managers, executives, being able to get an early warning system to address urgent customer issues, doing coaching and quality monitoring of cases. And we're going to talk about that today. That's today's topic. To taking that holistic view of the customer experience, and then ultimately unlocking the insights that you gain through the support interactions to improve the customer experience that occurs through other functions in the organization, upstream with sales and customer success, ultimately informing product and engineering, how to solve root cause issues for the product, improve them to deliver a better customer experience over time. And then finally, in this day and age with the economic pressures that we're all facing, working with IT, with business operations, with finance, to demonstrate a business case that improving the support experience can improve company metrics, especially around financials, things like reducing the cost of support operations, and improving customer retention and revenue, which is ultimately what all of us want to be tied to. SupportLogic has a platform for support experience management. And I'm not going to go too deep into all of these rows here. This is a little bit of an eye chart, but essentially think of it as an all-in-one solution for support experience. We like to talk about it in terms of the jobs to be done. If you think about the support and success stack today, you have your core infrastructure, things like CRM and telephony. Many of you are probably investing in self-service initiatives around knowledge management, et cetera. Then you have your assisted support. Assisted support, especially for complex technical solutions, plays a big part in the role of support experience today. So we think about it in terms of three buckets: support operations, which is your core support experience delivery, being able to analyze sentiment and be able to deliver those customer signals in ways that improve the experience, assigning cases to the right agents, being able to predict and prevent escalations by looking at the case history and the context of the customer, and being able to alert the right people to get involved, being able to have a better view of account health management, managing and prioritizing your backlog. That's the core support operations. And then this middle section of quality monitoring and coaching, I'm going to turn over in just a minute to Harish to talk about, but this is really what we're talking about in terms of auditing case quality, monitoring cases, monitoring all the interactions to deliver a better customer experience in the moment, and to coach engineers and agents to deliver a better experience over time and to retain them and develop their careers and all of the goodness that comes from investing in the employee experience. Finally, SupportLogic platform has agent productivity capabilities in terms of managing backlog, in terms of delivering better responses in the moment to customers. And we have a whole suite of tools here that help to directly improve the agent experience to deliver that better customer experience. So I just said a whole lot. And as I said, we're not going deep in all of these areas today. We would love to have a follow-up conversation with you if any of these areas are interesting. So now we're going to dive into this middle section around quality monitoring and coaching. And so the first question I want to ask, this is a poll question for the audience to set stage for the conversation, is: do you have a QA process in place now? So go over to the polls tab and tell us what you're doing today. Give it just a minute. All right. Few are saying yes, we have one. It's about 3/4 have one today. The rest looking to build one. I think that's a good guide for the conversation today. It sounds like there's interest on both sides. So Harish, I'm going to turn it over to you now to talk about quality monitoring and QA. And maybe let's start with the use cases that are supported.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. So at SupportLogic, we have probably the most comprehensive quality monitoring solution for customer support teams, highly tuned and highly specialized for the needs of customer support teams, both large and small. In terms of use cases, so 7 of you have already voted that you have a QA process in place. It's most likely a manual QA process where you have a rubric or a scorecard and you're manually evaluating how the support staff is interacting with your customers. So there is a whole bunch of workflows around how do you enable that, how do you track data, how do you report on the data, which is the manual QA workflow process. And we have a product that can enable that for you. In addition, if you were to move from this manual thing to an automated QA, which is where you don't have to manually score every interaction, because mostly when you start doing it manually, you're barely touching 1 to 2% of all interactions. If you wanted to automate that to 100%, we support that as well. Given that we can do this, then the derivative data from this kind of a QA process is coaching, is feedback. So how do you then deliver this coaching to your support staff and keep track of how they're improving or not improving? That whole module around coaching, we support that. We also support asynchronous coaching feedback. Lastly, while we are going back to the core SupportLogic message of being able to mine the ocean to get you those vignettes of data, we can also build some predictive CSAT models and predictive customer effort scores for you. So broadly, these are the 3 use cases we can support under the Elevate SX product.
That's great, Harish. Let's talk about the benefits of auto QA. It's a little bit of a buzzword, so let's break down exactly what companies can expect to gain from it.
Right. So mostly, people who have been through the process, it's a very, very highly manual and tedious process. It's a very important process, but let's say one of your agents resolved 100 issues last month, 100 cases last month. Today, you're most likely barely pulling 2 or 3, maybe up to 5 of them, and trying to listen to the call or scan the email and chat and trying to provide a feedback to your support agent, right? So most teams do this. It's a very valuable process and a very important process, but clearly it's limited by how manual, how much activity we can do. And there are other downstream disadvantages going through this process, and we'll talk about that. But our endeavor here at SupportLogic is let us help you do all of that laborious scoring activity. You spend your time on a higher value added activities of using this data to coach your agents better, to track them better, to focus more during your one-on-ones on their other intangible aspects that are important to let them not churn, right? While we take care of all the heavy data lifting, data analysis part. So if you were to turn on auto QA, that's basically what you're getting. And the other angle that you also get, if you just go back to the previous slide one second, is we talked about this CSAT and NPS and CES responses. Because we are able to do this kind of QA, 100% QA automation, we can also kind of deliver that for you, because most likely your response rates are 10 to 15% at best on what your customers are thinking. The other 85% that never respond, we can help you predict that as well. So when we turn on this kind of a tool, these are the broad benefits.
Awesome. And I was jumping ahead a little bit, but these are some of the drill downs in each area. So you want to talk a little bit about the problem. I think you said, was just the sampling, right? Just doesn't get you to the full coverage. And then you talked a little bit about the delay issue as well, which leads to sample bias.
Yeah, exactly. So most teams today are obviously this is where they are. They usually, it's very rigid. The process is very rigid, especially in terms of support volume, escalations, support volumes changing. How do you automatically scale your team is very, very hard. So you're kind of capped at this 1 to 2% reviews, which is clearly not enough. And we have heard of agents not being happy, even the QA staff not being happy that they're only able to review a few, and their feedback is very, very limited, very sparse. Also, because it's not system driven, feedback is usually delayed. Most teams try to do it once a week, several do once a month. Clearly not an optimal situation to be in. The other aspect that we've heard a lot about is how subjective these reviews can be, and especially the people who receive them, the support staff, they are the ones who are clearly unhappy, that they sometimes complain of bias. They may or may not be biased, but we have heard of this thing as well. So all of the current highly manual QA processes suffer from some of these issues. And so from here is where we take you to 100% QA.
So those are the challenges. Let's talk about the solution.
Right. So when you start looking at every interaction, right? So clearly this needs a lot of lifting here, but once you're able to get to this stage, essentially that means that any feedback you're sharing with your support staff now is very comprehensive, right? So if I were to go and say, hey, John Doe, you're weak on this or you're strong on this, I'm not saying that based off of 1 or 2% of their interactions. I'm giving them a very comprehensive, thorough analysis when I say, hey, this is what I mean when you're weak or strong on something. Also, this can be super timely, right? So we have customers running this every night. We have customers running every 2-4 hours. So we can make it however timely and contextual you want it. So nobody needs to wait for weeks to get their feedback, especially given how intense a support function can be. And onboarding times are long and sometimes churn is quite high. It's extremely critical that we provide any feedback as soon as we can. And an approach like this clearly enables that. Lastly, it's about objectivity because it's machine driven. Doesn't mean humans cannot override this. So we'll show you in the demo how you can override whatever machine is finding. But since it's primarily machine driven, it's consistent and it's very objective. right? And we see that as a big benefit for this approach.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure everyone's thinking now, okay, this sounds great, but how does it actually work? Let's, get into the details of it here in a second. I want to invite everyone first to take the second poll question, which is around how many hours are your managers spending reviewing cases and coaching per week? If you go to the polls tab. So it's under 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours, 3 to 4, 5+ hours. So it'll give us a good view of the frequency distribution. Give it one more minute. All right, so it looks like everyone is in that middle section of 3 to 4 hours per week. One of them is 5+, so maybe we'll hear from them later on what's working there. Let's before we dive into the actual product, I know you have a case study to share, Harish. This is Coda Payments. Let's talk a little bit about what the value they're getting, how they do it, and what it's enabling for the business.
Right. So Coda Payments is a great business, one of our favorite customers. So it's also a complicated thing that we did for them. So they have a ton of chat interactions they have with their customers in 65 countries, multiple languages. They had a highly manual QA process. They were doing a good job. They were trying to get to 2%, 1 to 2% of all this high volume of interactions they get. Clearly not scalable and not comprehensive enough, which is when we turned it on. We looked at their scorecard, and it was also a complicated scorecard. So we looked at that and we automated most of it. There are still some aspects that cannot be automated, so they still continue to do them manually. But right now they have a comprehensive coverage, 30,000 cases plus per month in multiple languages that are being analyzed for almost 70% of their scorecard completely automatically. As part of this, we also help them look into their zero tolerance policy issues, where they have some concerns around their agents never asking for a password or never asking for a credit card number. So issues around trust and safety and compliance are part of the scorecard, right? So we are able to look for those and keep monitoring all these cases to see if any violations or deviations happen there. So we're quite happy with how things have turned around, and they're also happy with how we have helped them scale their QA at almost very, very negligible uplift in the cost.
Yeah, it's a fantastic case study, Harish. Let's talk about how it works.
Great. So from a slightly systems point of view, if they're using core SupportLogic or not yet, we are able to connect to your CRMs, your systems of record. It could be any of this that we show on the screen. It could be more than this as well. But we can pull in your multi-model data. So your support clearly is through multiple channels, whether it's email or chat or phone. If the data exists in your system of record, we can pull it in through our connectors. And once we have that, we are able to process this data, and then we extract various insights for you. So primarily, the use cases that we are going to automatically score this data in alignment with your scorecard. And then we also try to do some other extractions on some of the signals. But the primary use case here is that we look at your scorecard, or we offer you a scorecard that we already have, and all of your data is being analyzed against that scorecard. And then we create these dashboards and other stuff that I'm going to show you, where it will be very easy for you to understand how your stuff is performing, individual fashion as well as in an aggregated manner.
So that's a great overview. I'm sure some people in the audience are asking, I do some sort of a manual QA process today. Is there still a role for that? Let's talk about the difference between automated versus manual.
Absolutely. So most teams, it's a crawl, walk, run philosophy that we follow here at SupportLogic. So if you do not have anything, you're just getting started, and you're like, okay, fine, I just want to get started. I want to do this manually for now. Then instead of doing it on some Google spreadsheets, which most teams still are, we provide a completely manual solution. So you can define multiple scorecards. You can define some assignment rules such that system will automatically figure out which cases to surface for you, so you can just evaluate them. And we have a bunch of other bells and whistles around what a mature QA organization would want. That's where you could get started. But if you want to skip that and you want to say, you know what, I don't have the resources, I don't have the time or budget to be able to sit and do all this manually. I just want a tool which can automate it for us. So in which case we have the automated side of the bucket, automated side of the house, where we are automatically scoring every one of your conversations in alignment with your scorecard. As part of this, we can detect threats, profanity, compliance violations, in general, how the soft skills of your support staff, how are they friendly with my customers? Are they showing empathy with my customers? All of this can be automatically detected, right? So in a good practice, though, what happens is most organizations, it's a good mix of automated and manual, because being able to completely automate everything that you want is not practical. We try to achieve at least 70 to 80% automation, and whatever you still want to keep manual, you can keep it manual. And the system is quite robust enough to support that workflow for you.
A question that comes up on the manual versus automated is, I understand the rubric on the manual side because I built that myself, but how does that actually work on the automated side?
On the automated side, we take your rubric. We already have a bunch of pre-trained models we've been building for our customers over the last few years. We have almost 30 different models. So we take those, and these most likely align with your scorecard to a good degree, a great degree. So there's some examples here that I'm showing. On the behavioral side, if you had questions on your rubric around how are they opening the conversation? Are they asking the correct questions? Are they being humble when the customer gets really mad? What is the tone? Are they actually resolving the problem for my customer? So these are some of the questions you may have on your rubric right now. We already have pre-trained models for that. So we take those, we deploy that on your data, and we work with you and show you how they are working on your data, right? And on the acoustic side, on the audio data side, we do have pre-trained models to detect customer tone and anger, any dead air that your agents randomly go quiet, or any on-hold violations, agent talk time, so various other speech signals that you would be interested in. All of these are pre-trained. They're ready to go on day one. Once we start with you, then we work with you during an implementation time that say, hey, this is your data. These are the models which are working really well for you. These are the models which may not be working with your data. Then we customize them for you. This is basically how we start the process.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to actually see it in the product. Before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about typical processes today. I mean, many companies do this on spreadsheets, right?
Exactly. So either you're still using spreadsheets, and there are some companies which move to Airtable. So that is the level of automation sometimes people have gone to. But then there are other manual QA tools. There are some really good manual QA tools out there in the market which enable this workflow as well. So we can work with them as well. But primarily 70 to 80% of the companies are still in this spreadsheet world. So from here, we take you to our world, where instead of you having a rubric like this, listening to your phone call or scanning that email conversation back and forth and manually scoring each attribute, we do that for you, and I'll show it to you on the product. Do we jump into the demo stage, Joe?
Yep. Perfect. Great segue.
All right. Let me quickly share my screen. While I get in there, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
All right, we can see it now.
All right, so I need to. Okay, you can still see my screen?
Yep, it's up.
Perfect. So let's compare the spreadsheet that you just saw where you do manual scoring, and in our system, this is how it looks like. So we connect to your CRM, we pull in every case that's closed or in a solved status. Technically, we pull that in and we show that to you on our system here. As you can see, each agent comment comes in, each customer comment also comes in. We have default PII redaction built in. We can turn it on, turn it off, depending on how you want it, but we don't need that PII data. So all of that gets masked out here, right? And you'll also see that the timestamps and everything is also shown here. Also, in addition, if you have multiple agents on a call or on a conversation, we will handle each of them separately. So each agent gets their own QA score, so to speak. Now, going into slightly more detail, every agent's comment is being analyzed, as you can see to the right here. This is your rubric. This is your scorecard. On this comment, how did the score on opening or personal or detail or probing questions or servicing? Then if I go to the next comment, on this comment, you will say how they're scoring on the similar aspects. We fine tune it such that we look for different signals at the opening of the conversation. We look for different signals at the closing of the conversation. And in this case here, they fail on two aspects, which is timing, which is responsiveness, because the SLA says they were supposed to respond in 24 hours, but they took like more than 7 days. And there's a grammatical error here. So we're looking for all the signals and we kind of ding them on that. Once we do this at each comment level, which also helps us figure out score for each agent that you may have in the conversation, then we automatically generate this thing called an auto QA score to the top left that you see here. Right. So that is the score we are generating for each case. And within that case, if there are multiple agents, each of them gets their own score as well. So this is the part where we're talking about auto QA, right? Now, if I come down here on the left-hand side, you see a way to easily navigate, because you may have long conversations running 130, 140 comments back and forth. So if you want to know exactly where a particular thing was noticed, we just help you directly jump to that particular comment. So it becomes easy for you to provide feedback or coaching to your agents. Also, when your agents come and review these cases, it becomes easy for them to jump around and see exactly where I got some feedback or some notes. Right. So these are auto evaluation process. Now, the other piece here is the audio. I mean, I can go into more detail later, but similarly, we can do all the audio processing as well. We auto-generate a transcript for you. If you already have a transcript through your phone solution, we can pull it in as well. And within this transcript, you'll see it's easy to search, easy to jump around, exactly what part of the conversation, what's happening. All the signals you're seeing, red is where the customer's like really angry, blue is where there's a hold time, and we have a bunch of other acoustic signals as well. All of that will show up depending on how the call proceeds. Right? So this is the auto QA part that we do. Right? Everything is being automatically analyzed. Also on the top left, you would see the manual QA portion is blank, because what we enable here is you can then manually review this conversation as well if you want to. When you do that, this field gets populated. In addition, you can pull any random ticket anytime in the conversation in the system and manually QA it. Two other metrics that we show you: CSAT. We can pull this from any of your CSAT surveys if you're doing that, or if you want us to predict CSAT, we can start building a model for you for that. The other aspect is a customer effort score. So we have our own model for this, and we can tweak it for you. The idea here is to figure out how much effort your customers are putting in to get this particular case resolved. We'll look at a variety of signals to come up with this score, and we present that to you.
That's great. We'll come back to customer effort score actually in a little bit.
Yeah. And here's a quick example, let's say, of a case where it's been automatically analyzed. Now, let's say you come in and you say, hey, I want to override this, or I want to manually review it. So you can come in here, you simply choose that, and you can choose any of the scorecards that you've configured in the system. So we allow you to hold as many scorecards or rubrics as you want. So you can choose that. And once you do that, you'll clearly see now that system allows you to, the scorecard changes, the criteria change, and you can start reviewing it with any feedback that you want to share with this particular agent or multiple agents if you want to, right? And once done, you simply click on complete review and you can share this feedback with them. It can get Slack to them, MS Teams, whatever channel you want. It's all of that is supported right now. So this is where you manually review a particular conversation. Right? Now, this is all good to go. I mean, automatic review happens, manual review happens, but the real meat is how does this data get presented to the decision makers, right? So this is where we show you, this is your landing page effectively. So whether you're a QA manager or customer support head, or even an agent for that matter. So we also enable agent access. This is basically where you're landing, and you get a bird's eye view of the entire health of your organization, so to speak, from a QA perspective. As you can see, this is the QA score. This gets aggregated across multiple dimensions, and you can completely define these dimensions. I'll just quickly show you an example here. So it's all very self-service enabled right now. So you can bring in all of your agents. You can group them by managers, team leads, expertise, tiers, whatever dimension you want.
You can slice and dice based on your business and get the view that you want to evaluate the quality on.
Exactly. And all these KPIs, again, completely flexible. We can remove some of these styles. You can add some of the styles that you want, but this is basically what we offer. And then as you go down, you'll see the trends. You can see weekly and monthly patterns here. And then you will see how the group performance. These are the team managers that we chose, and you will see how their team's performance. So we can keep track of all of this in skills, which are like overall skills about communication, empathy, and responsiveness, or we can go more granular with behaviors, and we can show you much more granular detail on how this entire organization is performing right now. If you want to go a little deeper and say, how are my managers stacked up against each other on timing, responsiveness, then you can clearly see that Cassandra's team is the weakest, and you get this high level overview. The other nice thing that we have is the drill down capability. So if I'm the head of support, I come in here, I get an overall health of the organization. I understand how my managers are doing right now. But if I want to dig a little deeper and say, okay, how is Jack's team doing? You can go in there, you can get a more detailed view of Jack's team. Now, Jack, when he logs in, he gets only this view. So this entire role-based access control is built in. So when Jack logs in, he gets his view. Similarly, any of his agents, when they log in, Amanda, she gets only her view. So all of this drill down capability is also built in for you. Right. The last piece I would like to show is being able to view this data by scorecards as well. So here, this is the auto QA scorecard that we already have. Now let's say you choose a manual scorecard. Then entire data shifts, and you can see that the sentiment scores are different, the color coding is different. So system allows you to define any number of manual scorecards, score all of your agents on those lines if you want to, and then you can come and view all this data in those dimensions as well.
That's fantastic, Harish. Thank you for the tour here.
Before we jump over, there's a bunch of other functionality that we're not showing. We're happy to show you in more detail. As you can see on the left-hand side here, we have a complete support for all of the manual processes, manual flows that you would want to see. Here you can create an assignment, a QA assignment, calibration, grade the grader. That whole 9 years is already built in. Also the coaching module, which is where you can record your feedback, you can share feedback with your agents. We can keep track of all the different feedback that you want to share with your agents. We even have video coaching built in. There's a bunch of other bells and whistles as well, but the core is what I just demoed to you, and I'll hand it back to Joe.
Awesome. So let's get back into the slide view.
Joe, do you want to share this? Okay, there you go.
Yep, here we go. So great demo, Harish. I think a lot of people understand now the benefits of auto QA, but a major challenge is the cost, especially on the operational side. It's been heavy lifting on the manual side. So do a little bit of a compare and contrast here between the traditional and the auto QA.
Right. So this table does a good job here. So if you were to do this traditional QA, your coverage is probably 1 to 5%. While we don't want to kind of talk too much about the manual cost or QA staff cost, it becomes important as you start scaling up, because traditionally across the industry, usually people have like one QA person for 25 agents. It could go higher or lower, right? On average, that's basically what we see. In an auto QA world, you will not need that kind of a ratio, right? You still want to have people around because you still want to do some manual QA and kind of oversee what the tool is doing and provide coaching. But if you're just getting started, there's a significant benefit for you. But if you already have staff, we're not saying you got to displace them, but you can certainly use them for higher value-added activities. You certainly don't have to add any more staff because we'll do most of the heavy lifting for you. In addition, the feedback frequency is very, very critical. We think that's of high value. And the scalability part, just like we spoke about, auto scaling, depending on your support volumes, system is automatically doing it for you.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing a 4x lift in terms of productivity on the operational side for doing QA. Let's get a little bit more granular and talk about the return on investment. How should companies think about this as they plan for it?
So these are some numbers that we kind of got through some industry study. This can obviously vary for your particular need here, but assuming 1,000 agent shop, this is essentially what we're looking at. The quality automation numbers around 660K, and effectively the ROI comes out to be very high, and you can see the numbers here. But we will work with you. So if you're interested for your particular case, we have our own internal ROI calculators as well. And depending on what you want from the system, we'll work with you. We'll be able to make a strong business case for you to go back to your CFO. And we have done it in the past, and we will help you get there.
I think every company is different, obviously, but I think this is a good guideline for people to think about. This is an actual case, right, of a customer who you went through this process with.
Yeah, you can see that, there's a customer that actually unusually high time spent on manual reviews, though, because it's very important for them and they touch almost 12% of their volume. And as you can see, estimated time spent is quite high, even at a very lowly $50 per hour. And for them, the case volume is actually way more than 80,000. It's already gone to 150,000. So when we jump in, when we start offering our service, clearly you will see that the ROI is significantly high for them. And now we're not even talking about the intangibles here. The fact that this data is available close to real time, or at least every night, and how that impacts their own agent satisfaction scores internally, their own agent employee NPS sort of internally, their own stress levels. A lot of these intangibles that come into play that we don't even try to quantify, but we've seen that across the industry that it matters a lot, and we're happy to help you there.
That makes sense, Harish. As we promised before, we were going to come back to customer effort score. Why should people care about this, right? And what are the factors that go into determining that and then enabling you to do something about it?
Absolutely. So the North Star metric for most of our the support organizations that we are all part of has been CSAT or maybe NPS, right? Now we depend on customer surveys. Whether we like it or not, we all know they are quite biased, but that is the North Star. Now, even adjusting for bias, the problem is the sparsity of responses. You still get 10 to 15%, and you are making decisions based off of that kind of response. So the industry is slightly trying to move from that to something called a customer effort score. This is much more realistic. In fact, a lot of teams actually have this as part of their survey question already, saying how satisfied were you with our support? Also, how much effort did you have to put in? Now, this particular aspect of effort, we feel, is way more indicative of the problems within the organization, and how can we automatically figure this out such that we can help our customers zero in on where the problem areas are. So that is our reason why we went after this. So we have a formula, as you can see here. We look at number of back and forths, the complexity of the customer sentiment change, the negativity the customers have. So a bunch of these signals that we look for, and we come up with this score, and we try to see how much effort did the customer have to put in, and how can we help our customers understand that it's going up or going down, and what steps can they take to reduce that.
Makes sense. I see some questions coming in. We'll get to in just a second. I want to ask one final poll question over to the right in the poll area. What area does your team need to improve on the most? Communication, internal processes, customer effort, all of the above, or other? Let us know. So I'm seeing several votes here for communication. That seems to be the highest. And then internal processes and customer effort. Is that consistent with what you see when you talk with customers, Harish?
Yeah, communication is a big thing, right? So people use all kinds of tools, whether it's Grammarly or what have you, right? So there's external communication, which is basically what we're looking at. How is my staff interacting with our customers?
Mm-hmm.
What is the tone and frequency of communication? This is really important. So these are the signals we try to extract from all this data and try to help improve that communication part. Absolutely, that's super critical.
Got it. Okay, so we'll close the poll, and please go ahead and ask some questions. I'm going to put it on this slide, or final slide here. There's a question from Danny. As we all know, AI is going to be wrong sometimes. What is the accuracy rate of auto QA?
Yeah, great question, Danny. Absolutely. So AI is not perfect. So internally, at least from a SupportLogic standpoint, what we look for is we do not deploy any model for you if we are not confident that it's at least 80 to 85% accurate. So we try to be correct 4 out of 5 times. In production, we have seen the models we have deployed for our customers being almost 90 to 95% accurate, but our commitment is usually 80 to 85%. right? So the goal here to be directionally correct, not exactly accurate on every piece that we look at, but directionally, are we able to tell you that this group of agents or this person is good on this, weak on this? That is our goal. And being able to do this over 100% of your conversations is what we're going after. So yeah, it will not be correct 100% of the time.
Makes sense. Still a big uplift for most companies who are doing it manually or not at all today. Another question from Sunil. If I don't have any processes or tools in place today, how should I get started?
Yeah, great question. So if you have nothing in place, talk to us. We already have, a rubric that has been tested across domains that we can help you get started with. If we can put a process in place, we can even coach you on how to start doing it manually to begin with. If you want to get your hands a little dirty and understand how to do it before you turn the automation on. But we do have the tools in place to get started.
Mm-hmm. And a related question from Tom, with a tool like this, what would a QA team structure look like? I think you shared a little bit the before and after, but tell us a little bit more, Harish.
Yeah, QA team structure, typically we see in today's world, maybe there's like one QA person. Most teams which do not have the budget for this, they either have their managers, kind of doing part-time work, or team leads doing part-time work. Every week they're spending 4 or 5 hours just sitting and reviewing all of their agents' work. They're still touching barely 1% of all the cases out there. So, but if you do have a formal QA team, then you would have QA analysts who report to a QA manager, who then reports to either director or head of customer support. That's a typical structure that we see. If you do already have a team like that, we'll help empower them. And for sure, you don't have to add any more headcount once the automation kicks in.
Makes sense. There's a question from Darcy relating back to the previous question from Danny on accuracy. Is there a way for an agent to appeal a score or coaching note should they find that the feedback is incorrect from their point of view?
Absolutely. Great question. So in fact, we have a whole workflow around dispute resolution. So whether it's the auto QA that has found something, or even a manual review that a team lead has already done a manual review, the agent does not agree with that, they can challenge that. They can do it at a very granular level and say, hey, here you said I lacked empathy, but I think this is empathetic. My response was quite empathetic. And they can share that. It triggers off a dispute resolution workflow. Then that goes back into the queue for the person who did that review. Or if it's auto reviewed, then it goes to the QA manager. And then they can resolve that dispute. So all of that is tagged. In fact, I did not get a chance to show that we have a dedicated page just for disputes, because this is likely to happen. It's important to keep our prime stakeholder here, the agents, happy and comfortable that they're being listened to and their feedback is being listened to. We have the entire workflow for that.
And I think the bottom line too is that the part of the whole goal of this is to facilitate a conversation, right? Which coaches and enables engineers and agents to get better. So that's all part of the process. Question from Carla: what differentiates this QA tool from others?
Yeah, primarily, it's a great question. So there are tools out there. So there are tools which are pretty good, which are manual QA tools, and they enable you to do all of this manual reviews. Then there are a few tools which try to do auto QA, but they're mostly focused on the call centers, and they're trying to do the speech analytics part. There's this huge gap where many support centers are trying to move away from phone calls to text-based support, email or chat or other formats, even social media for that matter, where a tool which is able to ingest all of this data and help you both with a manual set of the things as well as auto QA when you're ready for it or if you want it, that is our uniqueness, right? In addition, when you look at the core SupportLogic offerings that we already have, where we're doing some escalation detection for you, we're already flagging that these cases probably have an escalation risk. For us to be able to surface those on the QA side and enable for you to manually review them to see exactly what's happening. So that's where we neatly tie into the core offering. But even as a standalone offering, we are unique because we offer you the manual side of things as well as auto QA side of things. And we are multilingual and we are multi-model. We can do your audio data, your text data. Right now, there's no tool which can do all of this.
Fantastic, Harish. We have time for one or two more. while we see if others get submitted, I want to do a quick plug for SX Live. So SX is support experience. We talked a little bit at the beginning about the value of support experience across the organization, did a deep dive here on the quality monitoring and QA side. If you like what you heard, SupportLogic sponsors this industry event series called SX Live. And this is not about products so much, but more industry conversations, the challenges, the solutions that people across the support space and the beneficiaries upstream, downstream, like customer success, product and engineering. We have our big virtual conference, June 13th through 15th. If you're interested in registering for that, there's a link over in the docs section to the right. And then we've also started just 2 weeks ago, a series of city tours. We were in Seattle and Austin. I talked to a lot of folks in the support and success space who had got great value from networking, from hearing from thought leaders who are on a panel talking about a lot of the topics of interest today in the support experience space. And we have a series of other cities later on this year. So you can go to sxlive.com to learn more. Again, SupportLogic is the sponsor, but this is an industry event series, and it's been very popular. Last year was the inaugural SX Live, and we're building on that this year. So come and join us. And it looks like there are no more questions. So Harish, again, if you're interested, if you want to have a conversation, we would love to talk with you more. There's a demo link on this slide, and then you can also, over in the docs section, you can email us directly and start the conversation that way. Do you want to close it out, Harish, with key takeaways here today?
Absolutely. So great again for the opportunity. We're look forward to hearing from all of you, most of you. So at a core, we are offering a 100% quality monitoring solution as part of the broader SupportLogic umbrella. This cleanly helps us with our core product, which helps you with escalation detection and prevention. As part of this, we have various bells and whistles, various features, and we are happy to chat with you if you think anything's missing. But we support manual QA, we support auto QA, we support a number of scorecards you may want, and we have models to predict your customer effort as well as CSAT. It clearly helps, will superpower your coaching efforts for sure, and also make your agents have their voice heard. That here's a tool which not only helps you understand where you're doing well, where you're not doing well, it also helps you challenge any findings people may have, and kind of can become their go-to tool to help them get better.
Fantastic. On that note, we will wrap up. Thank you, Harish, for all of your insight here. I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone on the call has as well today. We'd love to continue the conversation, and have a good rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everyone.